This is the rhythm of change. This is the sound of redemption. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. Igniting the fire within you. Exalting the melody of freedom. These are the things that will bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Down, down, down.
Let me tell you, it's in the air. Joy is in the air. Love is in the air. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Don't sleep on it, brother. You might get left, sister. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Justice. No need to be counted, cause I am down. Down, down, down. Down, down, down. Down for the end of racism, for the end of bigotry, cause I am down. For the end of misogyny, that's right. For all the isms out there, just down, down, down. Let's bring it down. Rise up, people. No more foolishness, and let's bring it way down.
Riding the river of change into the cries of contrition. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. We are the children of Eden, dancing and celebrating freedom. We are the ones that must bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. We've got to bring it down. Down. Stand up and shout. Stand up and shout. Rise together.
Accountability starts now. The Eric Dawson Radio Show.
Yeah. Rise up. Stand up, shout it loud.
If you are not prepared to come to that table and to represent that voice, don't come. Because we don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. We don't need black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't need Muslims that don't want to be a Muslim voice. We don't need queers that don't want to be a queer voice. And if you're worried about being marginalized and stereotyped, please don't even show up.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Eric Dawson Show. I have with me today is Tuesday. I gotta find a name. Something Tuesdays. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Get you behind the work Tuesday?
No. No. I don't like to sound it out.
Okay. Make yourself marketable for employment Tuesday.
Well, they should do that every day. See, so the way you just said that is like they only do that on Tuesday.
No,
like,
way I said
so
that
Monday,
is that you only do that on Tuesday.
So Wednesday through Monday, you could just eat bonbons and hang out and watch the judge shows. But then on Tuesday, get yourself together and make yourself marketable.
That's right.
Yeah. So anyway, we're here with Deirdre Viney. She is the president of Express Pros out of Jersey City. What is your I don't want to call it a tagline, because when you say tagline, it diminishes it, right? Because it should encompass and embody the very essence of what your business is, right? And brand it inside and out. So what is your vision and what is your mission that some people call it?
Helping companies find the right talent by helping people find the right jobs. It's that. I'm a matchmaker.
Helping companies find the right talent by helping people find the right job. And the right job, finding the right job is important, right? And I know, Deirdre, before the show, and sometimes I just get inspired in terms of what to talk about, right? I have a general concept. But I do want to spend some time, I guess, talking about finding the right job, because in this period of desperation, as we have almost 40 million people who file for unemployment, you're going to have people who are just looking for any job, right? Because, their burn rate, and what I mean by that is the amount of money that you're spending is outpacing the amount of money that you're bringing in, right? So all of your bills and all those things. So when you had a job, if you were making $4,000 a month and you were spending $2,700 a month, that left you with $1,300. You like my math, Vincent? See, I'm getting better hanging around with you, right? So I wrote that down so I could know. But anyway, so you have $1,300. So your burn rate is less than your intake. Now people are upside down, and so you're spending that $2,700 a month because all those bills are still there, but maybe through your through the unemployment check, even with the $600 stimulus, maybe you're only bringing in $2,000. So now your burn rate is $2,700, and you're only bringing in $2,000, right? So you're eager to get a job. You're desperate to get a job so that you can get back on top of paying those bills. But it is about finding the right. Because Deirdre, you're not looking for the desperate person who's looking for any job. Right? Like you said, you help companies, right, find the right talent, right? And then, and so people shouldn't come to you, just desperate to find any old job, because that's not how you're placing them.
We're doing our best there. Yeah, there are certainly situations where folks need to be flexible in this environment, and I think that a staffing firm is one of those places to be flexible, because we have sometimes very short-term jobs, a week, 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, where we can get you working right away, and that's a good way to segue into this kind of economy continues to roll back to full employment.
So, I mean, what is full employment? I mean, where do you? Well, so let's start here. So, because you say full employment, 40 million people file for unemployment. We've already talked about job markets just being wiped out now. They're saying that maybe half of the restaurant industry will not return. We've agreed on this show through the data that they represent the second largest employer next to the government here in this country. And so when we say get back to full employment, as America is opening up, and I want to spend some time talking about how people just wild out yesterday on the beaches, right? No social distancing. I mean, it's like nothing is occurring. And so, you're talking about it coming back, but then you have medical experts saying that because of the reckless behavior, we may see a second wave of this thing, and that second wave may actually create a bigger issue from March until, say, maybe last week or the week before last. I don't know how busy your phone was, but has it increased over the last, have the calls for talent increased over the last couple of weeks?
It has, and that's what I'm saying is things, I'm not going to say maybe full employment is the wrong terminology, but as businesses start to kind of churn, they look to hire sometimes temporary workers first to get back to their full production or even at partial production. Maybe they laid off too many. Now it's time to get back to the cycle. And so we are getting more calls in the last 2 weeks.
And again, the calls are primarily coming in what industries?
So food is still a big one. That's manufacturing, warehousing. That's still the big ones that I'm seeing the most of. I haven't seen as many on the administrative side. I saw a few distribution centers. We placed a couple people last week in a distribution center kind of administrative role. Mm-hmm. So it's starting to roll.
Okay. Are there in these industries, are there any specific things that they're talking to you about in terms of how they're retooling, how they may be looking for something different than they were looking for before, based on them making adjustments to this coronavirus?
I think initially we saw a lot of cleaning, and I think that's still a big concern of different warehouses, is that they're socially distancing, they're providing proper PPE. But in terms of just new, not really. It's kind of the same. I think they're really being very prudent of how the workers are coming to work, and that should make people feel a level of comfort as they're taking jobs.
So, but they are being prudent. And are you? I know some companies are talking about taking temperatures and doing some other kinds of things with employees. Is that I'm just trying to figure out, what if I'm coming to you now, how I present myself as not only being a qualified candidate, but also a low risk candidate.
Yep.
Do you understand what I'm saying to you?
Yeah.
Because let's say, and we talked last week exhaustively about social media pages and things like that, right? And so let's say yesterday I decided to go hang out at one of those real crowded beaches, and I'm taking pictures and videos, and I'm putting those things up on my social media page, right? So while you have all of these businesses that have been impacted, and they're trying to figure out how to be cautious, and then they happen upon my page where I'm just throwing caution to the wind. What do you say about that?
So that's a good one.
Look, because I'm telling you right now, I'd go, no, right? Because I'd have to imagine.
I'm sorry, I saw you at the beach last week, and you could be potentially contagious.
Well, no,
so
not even be contagious.
Uncharted territory for everyone.
Not even be contagious, right? But it would be clear to me that in terms of trying to find the right talent, trying to find the right fit. Vincent, mute your phone. Trying to find the right talent, trying to find the right fit. That as I'm looking at the news and all of the reports coming from all of the medical experts about where we are in this pandemic, I see that you're just numb from the neck up. you're just not getting the drift. And so I wouldn't want to have somebody practicing reckless behavior working in my company, especially in this time.
So, Deidre, I guess, Deidre, maybe what he's looking for is that in the interview process, and someone sees that you are outside, how do you counter or prepare yourself for the question stating your inability to deal with isolation anxieties?
Well, you guys are asking tough ones because that is a difficult one. I think that, a person needs to be honest with themselves for flexibility. We're in a different time and space, and let's just call it what it is. And so if a company is going to want you to socially distance, wear proper PPE, you got to be able to go with the flow, period.
Yeah, but again, so this is interesting, right? And I think this is evolving into can evolve into an interesting conversation. So you have right now a lot of people who have on their social media pages that they've decided not to wear PPE. They think that it's a hoax. They weigh in on the 5G being the cause of this and something else being the cause of it, and some attempt for a new world order. And so they are just refusing to social distance. They're refusing to wear masks and gloves and all those other kinds of things. And that's what I'm saying. So I mean, outside of like the general work stuff, right, where you're looking for somebody who's qualified to do the job, I might now look and say, you know what? Yeah, that person's immensely qualified. They're super talented. But here, their behavior is so reckless that in an environment where I've now adapted, my office to cleaning and social distancing, and I've moved desks and workspaces apart from each other to bring somebody in who's a renegade, who's gonna say, you know what, I'm gonna get in people's faces, I'm not gonna wear this stuff because I think this is all presents a problem for me if I was, if I was looking to hire somebody. So I just want people to be, as you do what you do, understand that if there's a hiring manager like me, I'm looking at that and I'm saying, you know what, I don't want the headache.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's part of the process too when you're interviewing, because you're right, you need to be able to be comfortable working in that environment. And if you're going to be reckless with your personal life, are you also going to be reckless in the business life? And they're overlapping now, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And these are just crazy times, Eric. I don't have an answer.
They really are.
Crazy times.
They really are. And then, I don't envy you. I'm telling you, I don't envy you. I mean, I do in that for 20 years you've had your business and you've been super successful, and I see the accolades that you get, that trophy that you had. So, not envy, but I'm very proud of you. As you try to weed through, because we talked about this too, right? People exaggerating their resumes, lying, right? So, you've got this built-in lie detector now, I guess, as people sit with you, because of the amount of desperation out there, they're going to be more creative lies, and you're going to have to sift through all of those kinds of things. So in that respect, I don't envy you. And then in this new age, the different questions that you're going to have to ask in order to ascertain the truth, to be able to pair the right person with the right company, is going to be artful. So I'm looking forward to see how you manage it. And so as these weeks evolve on the show, I'm imagining you're going to have some very interesting stories about how people have been creative. Go ahead, Vincent.
Well, Deidre, you said earlier in the show that the call is coming for majority entry-level positions.
Well, you should have some experience. So, yeah. Like in warehousing, they still look for some experience. Some forklift positions are starting to really open up now. So you have to have experience doing those kind of things.
So
administrative roles, you absolutely have to have experience. I don't really place super entry level, if that's what you are asking.
No. Just basically entry level. I understand that some experience is, of course, preferable, but is that lining up? Is that proportionate with the actual unemployment ratio? I mean, because we're understanding that the entry-level positions that are opening, are there a lot more people losing their entry-level positions, or are there more people losing their middle management positions?
So if you're talking about just entry level, when this thing first fell apart, we were definitely, our clients were letting people go left and right because they weren't busy. They were servicing sectors that were shut down. And that was sort of the I'm going to say entry level, even though I think everyone has to have experience. But now as it comes back, then I guess that's an area that's going to first come back, because someone's got to do that work. Someone's got to fill those orders and whatnot. And that's the part where people need to kind of understand and get ready to hopefully take on those roles with the staffing firm.
Okay, so let's define entry level for a lot of people as positions of non-degree.
Sure.
Okay, or minimum skill set.
Okay, so it depends, because for me, when you say entry level, to me, I think someone that may not have worked before, that this is their first job, and that's why I don't think of it that perspective. For us, you need to have at least a year or two experience working, particularly in the field that we're servicing. Especially on the office services side, you definitely need to have, some experience where they want to see that you understand how to do, whatever kind of pivot tables or administrative skills or whatever kind of things they're requiring you to do. So, yeah.
So let's look at the now 10% of the lower middle class who have filed for unemployment. What's the likelihood of them getting one of the positions that we were talking about that are opening up right now?
So they're flexible with their pay. That's a big thing too. Is I think that folks sometimes are very strict with what their pay range is, and if they can be a little flexible, that might help them. Because remember, some of my jobs it might be short term, 2 weeks a month. Sometimes they're long term and they don't have an end date, so they just have to be flexible. And I know that's tough for some people to consider, because they'll say, we talked about that earlier, Eric, people will say, well, I have unemployment and I don't want to mess with my unemployment. And understanding that unemployment is a savings account. And that's why I know it's not necessarily a savings account, but it's like a savings account.
Right.
You want to be able to use it when you really, really need it. And if there's work out there, as things hopefully kind of start to return a little bit back, you need to consider that as an option and not just say, oh, forget it, I'm just going to stay home and collect unemployment.
Well, actually, technically, you're right. Unemployment is a savings account. A portion of your state tax gets set aside for the inevitable of you needing employment or you needing some income while you are currently unemployed or underemployed.
Right.
So yeah, you're perfectly right in that terminology. But so people are now dealing with the issue of collecting unemployment, giving up that unemployment for a salary which is below their standard of living or the standard of living which they've grown accustomed to, versus having nothing. I mean, for me, that's a no-brainer. But so you think people would rather just collect unemployment than to take a pay cut?
Yeah, and that's the challenge. That is a big, big challenge. And I'm not saying that's always the case, but you would hope that people would just be open to considering things instead of just saying, nope, I'm on unemployment, I'm good, I'm going to keep with that.
Yeah, but we talked about that a lot of folks are, for whatever reason, they're looking at the short game, right? Not the long game, and they're rolling the dice and believing that. I don't know. It might be a calculation I might make too. If I were making if I was earning below what I'm receiving now, right? So if between unemployment and the $600, let's say I'm making or getting $500 a month more than I was when I was working. That $500, which is going to extend until what, July? Is that it? Right? So count the number of months, maybe another $1,000 or $1,500 total that I could, put toward a bill. And then I look and say, you know what, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to roll the dice and believe that, I'll be able to get a job shortly after I do that. So, I mean, there's some people, unfortunately, they're in such a bad way. I mean, I would hope that they weren't in that bad way and that people didn't have those tough kind of choices to make, but unfortunately they do. I mean, especially when we say what? They said roughly half of Americans prior to this pandemic could not withstand a $400 cash emergency, right? So if in their previous circumstances they couldn't afford a $400 cash emergency, and now they're receiving $500 a month more because of the unemployment and stimulus package, that puts them in a different boat.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? I mean, and we would like, and I agree with you, the premise and in theory that they should be looking at it as a savings account, but right now they're looking at it as a lifeline. And they're saying, you know what? The government threw me a lifeline. I was drowning. And now I got a lifeline, and yeah, it only extends to July, but it allows me to at least get my nostrils above water, right? You know what I mean? And then I'll worry about the riptides come July.
Yeah, but I mean, I grew up in I'm going to date myself. So, I remember the period of the late 60s, early 70s, where most of my neighbors had engineering degrees, yet they couldn't get a job, and they were taking, positions as janitors.
Wow.
So, because, they did what they had to do for, their family, to keep food on the table and a roof over their heads. I mean, so to them, that option of unemployment was, was not viable. But, so, I mean, I'm not really embracing, I can't wrap my head around the concept of some people saying, well, I get unemployment, so why should I look for a job? I mean, really?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I hope that, I think the extra stimulus money, that is unprecedented. And that's a decision that people have to make. Because it will eventually go away. That's what I keep saying. It's going to go away. What are you going to do next?
So by the time, so the gamble is that I'll ride this stimulus money out, until it dries up, and then I'll look for a job.
Yeah, I mean that's again, we're trying to push people to think about their next move. And some folks are paralyzed by their level of poverty or desperation, and all I can think about is their current move. But that next move is gonna have to be made. Like it's inevitable. You know what I mean? It's like you can close your eyes and you could pretend not, but it's coming. It's definitely coming.
So I guess they'll have to. You'll more than likely get a bulk of phone calls from people looking for a job after this next stimulus dry up. But for right now,
you know what though? It'll work for you, right? In the line of business that you're in, it'll work for you, Deidre. But for them, what they would be hoping at that point, and I want you to be clear about this, guys. What you're going to be hoping at that point is the best case scenario for you would be that the day your unemployment stops, the next day you start working, right? Because a gap between the two starts to put you back in the same boat that you were in before. And the wider that gap is, so if it takes from the time let's say the stimulus and unemployment ends July 1st. And so now you pick the phone up July 2nd and you call Deidre and you say, I need a job right tomorrow.
And I may have filled all my jobs.
You may have filled all of your jobs, right? So now
so Deidre's reply was, I'm sorry, you should have called me in June.
so now your resume is sitting on Deidre's desk for 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, right? And so now you're falling right back into that ditch a deeper dip, right? And then 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and you're looking for a job. So what we're saying is that best case scenario, which is, and then understand this too. If you start a job on Monday, you don't get paid on Friday. It doesn't work like that. Right? So if you...
What do you mean, Eric? My electric bill is due on Friday. How come I don't get paid?
Vincent, don't step on what I'm saying. Let me finish the thought. So if you start your job on Monday, because this is the belief, right? I've talked to people. I understand. So some folks think, well, you know what? I'm going to end this thing on July 1st. I'm going to call an employment agency or something, hopefully Deidre, on July 2nd. I'll start work on July 3rd, and then on Friday I'll get paid, and then there'll be no gaps in between. And so even if you did land a job, if you were fortunate to do that, I don't know, what is it? The last time I had a job, it was it depends firstly on the pay cycle, right? If you're hired on the pay cycle, then it would be 2 weeks. But if you weren't hired on the pay cycle, it would be 3 weeks. And so you're now waiting 3 weeks before you get paid. So no more unemployment, no more stimulus, $600 check. Your bills are still coming, and you got 3 weeks to wait before you get paid. And guess what? If you've got to commute to wherever your job is, you're now paying whatever the gas is, whatever the tolls are, whatever the New Jersey Transit or whatever fees are. You're paying that for that. So now your burn rate increases. I'm just trying to give you guys and paint for you the reality of what the next move might be. And so getting on top of this now might be something worth it.
Yeah, your best move would be take the job while it's available, then gamble on it, being still available in the future.
So one of the things people can do too, just to kind of get a litmus for what's out there, is they can go into the boards and have their resume up there. They can put in the criteria they're looking for, and let those jobs come to them. So they'll see what's out there. They'll start to get warmed up to the fact that, things are still churning. Companies still were hiring the whole time. Maybe they're not hiring at the magnitude that they were, but they are still hiring. And now you'll start getting those jobs into your inbox every day. You can evaluate them and apply to them and start that process, because you've got to start the process somewhere. And that might be the place to start, is to keep at being very proactive instead of reactive.
Right. So your job is to find a job and do it on a full-time basis.
Yep. Pretty much. Finding a job is a job.
Yes.
And sitting home and waiting until, things, just magically shift back, I don't think is a good approach. You might need to just keep those creative juices going. Not creative, but keep those thoughts of like, this is what I want to do. Where can I be looking? And obviously, depending on your work experience, sitting around and waiting, is not good.
And now, Vincent talked. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Vincent.
So, teacher, what you're saying is that the black version of wait for the hookup is not going to work?
No.
So, Vincent mentioned earlier that, and guys, understand this dynamic as well. People have been laid off, right, at all levels. So, where you might not have had a tremendous amount of competition in a particular industry from highly skilled people because they had jobs elsewhere, those people are now looking for jobs. And we talked about this maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, Deidre, that if I'm an employer now, not only do I have time on my hands, it's like an employer's market, but I also can get a better bang for my dollar right now, because I may have somebody, who was a $80,000 person, just 5, 6, 7 months ago, right? and now they're in desperate times, and I might be able to get them for $65,000.
There you go. God
Right.
bless America.
Right.
I can hire the best and the brightest cheaper now.
So you have to be concerned about that as well. So if I'm out there looking, and to the point about urgency, right? So the longer you wait,
Yeah.
the more this thing shifts. And so you might be able to land that job, that $65,000 job, without the competition of somebody else having been laid off. Because again, as jobs are coming on board, there still are industries that are shutting down or retooling and reconsidering how they're going to be doing business. I was on the phone with somebody yesterday, and his dad owns a law firm, but he's working at home. All of the lawyers are all working at home. And I asked him, I said, so, how's your dad liking it? And I think his dad is in his late 70s. And he said, he's learning the tools. He's learning all of the different technology to work from home. And I said, do you think he's ever going to go back into the office? He said, in some way, but he's enjoying this now. It was, he was anxiety stricken at first, but now he's gotten used to it. And so, he's now considering things like, office space, what the cost of all of that overhead is, to have those people working in office, and the fact that they could be working at home and be more productive and cost him less in the long run. And maybe have one less attorney too, right? As a result. So now that attorney's out looking for another job. So it's changing is what I'm trying to get to. I just want you to operate, guys, with a greater sense of urgency than I believe that you're operating with now, because you are collecting this extra $600.
Well, Deidre, a question for you. I mean, we discussed earlier that people who are looking for positions who do have a standard of living and a price point in terms of salary and compensation, and they need to be flexible. Are corporations now, because it's such a tight market, are they also expressing a little flexibility?
With pay or with benefits? What do you mean?
With both. Let's start with pay and then benefits.
So I haven't seen a downtrend of pay yet. I think the example Eric gave is a valid one. I haven't noticed it yet, and I'm hoping that won't happen. But it's certainly something to consider, because there's a lot more competition on the street, and therefore just being realistic. That's another thing too people can do, is to understand what their worth is, right? What is their competition for salaries at different companies? And you can do a lot of that research online too. On, say, Career Builder has a section in there where you can figure out your pay, if you're paid appropriately, if you're underpaid, if you're overpaid, what that looks like. On the benefit side, that seems to be pretty standard. That I haven't noticed anything big time change on that side yet. But anything could change at any minute. Yeah. There's lots of moving pieces.
And I know, on your end, it's about finding employment for people, but we talked about that folks should look at different things, right? So not just full-time employment, but part-time employment that might lead to full-time employment, contract work that would lead to building networks and maybe some full-time employment opportunities. And then this doesn't really benefit you, but I think it benefits them. Guys, also look for internships, right? There may be opportunities for you to, in the middle of this, you can, because you're not getting paid, right? And so it won't affect your unemployment. If you were to contact companies and say, listen, I'm trying to learn a new skill. I know that companies have been laying people off and trying to stay afloat. I have these particular skills, and if I can come and work there, I can learn something new about this industry, and you can benefit from some of the skills that I have. Now, because you're not being paid, it's an internship. You get to be in there, you get to learn something new, you get to meet new people, and then maybe when your unemployment starts to run out, maybe you showed a degree of value to that person or to that company, and they look and say, hey, listen, we'd like to offer you an opportunity.
Yeah, that's a great opportunity. That I talked a lot about that before. When I saw the crisis happen, 08, 09, that was one of the things that I noticed is that it was a long-term periods of unemployment. And individuals are not utilizing their skill set in a variety of ways that you just mentioned. If you're collecting unemployment and you have the ability to benefit a nonprofit, that's another one too that's huge. They could use your help, and you have a certain skill set that you can add value to. Reach out, consider that as an option, because you don't want stagnation. And then you're trying to look back up, and there you go. 2 years have gone by, no work. You don't want that.
So take the opportunity. If you're retooling yourself, then take the opportunity of using that unemployment compensation time frame to do like a volunteer to get the experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Or even just not necessarily you have experience, but maybe it's a different sector.
Sector
You're going to go into, or I just give examples of nonprofits because they're always strapped for cash. I feel like and they always want talent to work, but may not have the money to afford it.
Yeah.
And now that you've got the benefit of maybe you've worked for a really long time, and now you've got a big chunk of unemployment money. And you are having some challenges, validly so. If you're at a certain level, you're not going to do certain things. Like, back to your point, there might be situations where you may not want to be the janitor and you were a mid manager, and now but you do have that time and that period of time because you do have so much unemployment. What else could you be doing? What else can you be doing to keep yourself out there? What else can you be doing to networking within organizations and adding value? That's a whole another different sector I think we're talking about than the ones that are just kind of saying, I'm just going to stay home and I have 6 months unemployment or 2 months unemployment.
And the thing is, again, guys, you got to look at all of the things that we've been talking about. If I consider the route of interning or volunteering, it is to help sharpen or build new skills. It's to maybe understand a new industry or sector. But then it's also about networking, right? And collaboration, because now you're around people. We talked about this before we got on air, Deidre. As this thing goes on and as people start winding down on their unemployment, on that stimulus check, anxiety is going to start to creep in, right? And so the idea of being out and about, getting dressed, routines too, right? Just being able to get dressed at the same time, get out of the house, go someplace where you're around people, socially distancing, of course, but you're able to collaborate. It keeps all of your skills sharp, but cocooning yourself, I think just kind of will lead to a darker road for people.
Yeah, last week a couple weeks ago, we talked about networking too, and how that is a critical part. And that might be the way that you get that volunteerism, or that might be the way you get an internship or the job. I guess it's a lot of moving pieces when you're looking for a job. It's a lot of moving pieces that you don't want to get into a rut. And then, next thing you know, you look up and it's 6 months and 8 months and unemployment's gone and you haven't really been out there as aggressively as you could.
Yeah, because one thing it does give you an opportunity is increase your opportunities. You're now in a situation where you're maybe not going for the position that you want, but you can find people in their network can find a suitable position for you.
Yeah, I would suggest that people, if I was functioning as a life coach, I would suggest that you put together a to-do list, right? If you don't have one, and a schedule, and then follow that schedule every single day, right? And the to-do list and the schedule is based on goal achievement, right? So if your goal is to get a job, well, we've given you a plethora of ideas. If any of those you find to be valuable to you, write them down and then make them part of your goals every day, right? We talked about, job search 1. We talked about, maybe retooling your resume to, there have been a lot of things that we've talked about, and the time that you want to spend searching for jobs. Make sure that you do that. Make sure, Vincent, you said it best earlier. You said searching for a job is a job. It's a job.
Yes.
And so you have to wake up in the morning, right? Get your cup of tea or your herbal tea or your cup of coffee, and then sit
For
down.
some of us, 3 cups.
Yeah, sit down, not in front of the television, right? But go find a place that you can carve out, maybe at your dining room table or your kitchen table, and you say that's going to be your workspace, right? And you hollow that workspace, right? So that becomes hollow ground where you sit down, you have no noise, you have no distractions, and you're doing business. And so even if you said, you know what, from 7:30 in the morning to 11:30 in the morning, I'm going to be, working on improving myself and finding a job. And then here are the things
and I think on that note too, Eric, I think that's a really key point, is that setting goals will help you stay on task.
Yeah.
Because it can get frustrating sending out resume after resume. But if you set a goal and say, okay, today I'm going to look at 10. Today I'm going to check LinkedIn and I'm going to connect with 3 people. I'm going to, do a coffee and chat with 1 person. And so if you're setting really clear things, then at 11:30 when you look up, you can feel a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah.
If you've done those things that you set out to do, instead of just saying, I'm just going to look for a job, and it's just aimlessly wandering the day, and now you look up and you barely got 5 resumes out.
Yep. And then, Deidre, we talked about percentages a couple weeks ago too, right? And it's funny because in the middle of last week, I was talking to Vincent about, how my business is growing, and I was laying out percentages. And I say, as a marketing guy, I follow the same percentages. So, and what did I say, Vincent? I'm operating based on a 1% model.
1%.
I'm operating on a 1% model. So, example. So for you guys who are sending out resumes, what I'm sending out is advertisements for my business and for my product, and I'm looking for a 1% return. And that first 1% return is people who notice it, right? And who say, "Oh yeah, I saw it." And then out of that 1%, I'm looking for 1% to actually purchase. So what I was laying out to Vincent is I said, if I'm targeting now, so 1%, right? If I'm targeting 10,000 people, right? 1% of 10,000 people, we concluded was how much, Vincent? Right? 1,000, right?
1,000.
1,000. So 1,000 people out of the 10,000 people are going to go, hey, I saw your product. Now I'm looking for 1% of that 1,000 to consider purchasing. And 1% of 1,000 is how many, Vincent? 10?
Yes.
So out of reaching 10,000 people, I'm hoping that 10 people will actually purchase it. So the amount of effort to reach 10,000 people requires what in a to-do list, right? So I'm not just and it's methodical, right? So I've got to actually work to get to those 10,000 people to get 10 people. And so now, guys, if I want a greater overall response or purchase rate, say if I want 20 people to buy, so I go, I need more than 10 people to buy this thing. I need 20 people. Well, now I got to go back to that first number, which was 10,000, and I got to double that to 20,000 now. And so if you guys are looking at sending out your resume, right, be honest about what the response rate is going to be. And that's the kind of work you now need to put in. And so it is literally buckling down. It is focus and concentration. The other thing that I found when I was looking for jobs, Deidre, it wasn't just sending out one resume. And we talked about this too, right? Here was a strategy that I would use. I would send out a resume on Monday, right? And then if I didn't get a follow-up, if I didn't get a return call or email from that resume, I'd send that same resume out to that same place the following week, right? And then I would do that either 2 or 3 times, and then I would stop. But what I was assuming the first 2 times was that maybe, like we talked about before, it got buried. The person just didn't get a chance to read it because they're inundated with so many different emails. So sending it out, right, is like taking one seed and throwing it out into a field and expecting it to, germinate, right? No, that's why they give you a whole bunch of seeds in a bag, right? Because, all of them are not gonna, take root. So you got to keep going. And so I used to have an Excel sheet. And so I would have it listed. So here are the ones I sent out on Monday. And then as I would go, no response. And then I would put over in the next column, resend on this day. So when I came down to sit at my desk to begin my next day of job searching, I knew which ones I had to resend. Right? And then I would resend those. And then again, after a certain amount of time, I just kind of took them off the list. If I got a response, then I had to follow up, right? And so I had follow-ups, I had resends, I had, all kinds of different things. And then to your point, Deidre, if I had interviews, right? And if I didn't get the job, I had also now, if I did get an interview, I added to that Excel sheet that I had to send a thank you. Right? So that became part of my task, part of my to-do list. So now I had send resumes, resend resumes, delete resumes from the thing. So you can see how it became work.
Oh yeah. Well, you were, but you were working your plan. You planned you work. What do you say? Work your plan, plan your work.
Yeah.
Right. And that's consistency is helpful.
Vincent?
Also was helpful is a huge level of organization to actually put all of that together. As Eric so meticulously laid out, is the simple fact of if you're looking for a job, it takes that amount of energy. It takes at least 6 to 8 hours a day to find a job. So your job is to get a job.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That is your job. That's your job, right? So, and here's the other piece, right? If you're not prepared to work harder for yourself than you are for somebody else, then I don't know how successful you're going to be. And so at that point, while you're looking for a job, you're working for yourself. You're essentially self-employed. You're not earning any money, but you're self-employed. And so if you put part-time work in, you may get a part-time result. Or less.
Or you're just basically working for a nonprofit, but it's not the nonprofit that's nonprofit by choice.
But it does require it does require work. I often thought about putting speaking about pushing those resumes out, Deidre. I had spoken to a developer. I guess maybe this was 12, 13 years ago, when I was searching for a job, and talked about putting together some sort of an automated email kind of system that would do exactly what I said. That would send out an email, and then if it came back with a no response, meaning that the person didn't reply to the email, didn't send me anything back, it would automatically send a new email out. And I could put in different subject lines and that kind of stuff. And then after 2 or 3 emails, it would just kind of remove it and put it into some sort of a bin for me to reconsider, somewhere down the line. But it's and the reason I thought about that is because, again, I started realizing that there's this great level of competition in terms of sending emails out. And sending resumes out. Let me ask you another question, because here's a strategy that I used to use, and it worked. It's risky, but I found a tremendous amount of success with this one. I realized that if I gave everything meaning that I sent a complete resume out, the recruiter or the hiring manager would be able to look and assess it all and make a determination. And so I wanted to leave something to the imagination, right? So I didn't give them everything. So the first email that I would send out if there was a job that I thought that I was qualified for is I would just send, and you have my resume, you have my long resume, Deidre, and I have a summary up at the top, right, that just kind of lays out, my executive experience, that I've done this, I've worked in high pressure environments, that I've done blah, 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 blah. I would just send that out, not the resume. And it was intriguing. So I would get a response back that said, hey, can you send me your resume? Because they saw this summary and they said, okay, this guy seems to have, we want to know more about you now. And so it was a way for me to get a second touch, right? Because if I sent the resume, they'd be able to look at it and say, I know. But this was a second touch now. And so now in that one, I was a little warmer. Hey, thank you, right? I'd be happy to send it. And now I could be, kind of warm up. And it worked out.
So, Deidre, do you think it's great to send an actual cliff notes of your life experience versus the 5-chapter novel?
So, two things. One, it depends on who your audience is. Because if you're sending it directly to a recruiter, that is an approach. That's a good one, Eric. I really can't say I've seen that, where you are actually kind of, I think we're moving so quickly in the speed of light that I feel like I want to see everything all at once to get my attention. Mm-hmm. But, that's a different approach maybe on the creative side where, if you're dealing, again, directly with the hiring manager, because sometimes you're not. You're dealing with what I'm going to call a bot, a computer that's doing a lot of that work for you, and it just goes into like a system and you don't know. And a lot of times those bots are those ones on the website that you see that you're pushing in, submit your resume. That's not going to get to a real person. You're talking to a recruiter like myself or multiple companies like us, then that might intrigue me, especially if it's a position that you've seen the ad up, you're applying specifically to something that intrigues me. That's interesting.
Yeah, and like I said, it worked. I don't have my resume up, but I would, if you do the whatever that summary is, I thought that it maybe I'll post it and you guys can see it. But you got to try innovative ways. You got to try to figure out how to stand out. You got to recognize again that the recruiter or the hiring manager may have a pile of resumes. When resumes used to get sent in the mail, they don't get sent in the mail anymore, right? They're emails. But I remember when resumes got sent in the mail, one of the strategies we talked about in finding a job, people would use different types of paper, right? Some linen, some cotton blend, right? Something that just kind of stood out, wasn't just Xerox bond paper. And then sometimes people would even lightly scent the resume with perfume, so that it stood out. Yes.
Oh my God.
Times are very, very different now.
No, but I'm telling. No. I understand that you can't get perfume in the email, but I'm just saying that people back then, even when we were riding on pterodactyls and chiseling our resumes in stone, right? people were trying to figure out how to be different, right? So all I'm trying to say is figure out how to be different, how to stand out.
Yeah, so that might be ways. I mean, I just think off the top of my head too, as it relates to, we talked last week about social media and creativity. I did start seeing resumes with pictures on it. I'm not a big fan of that, but I've seen resumes with links to something that they've done, a portfolio. So I certainly have seen some people get very creative. So that's a whole nother avenue. But what I was going to say, Eric, was that there is because there's no more paper, resumes back in the day with beautiful linen paper and perfume and whatnot. Perfume's a new one. Is I think that people are in replacement of that, feel that they want to dump their briefcase. And what I mean by that, it would be a 4-page resume. And they want to put every job they worked at for the past 25 years on there. And please don't do that, because we really don't have the time to read those resumes And now that you don't have to put them on fancy paper, you feel that that's needed. No, you're going to need to try to summarize it to whatever you've done in the last 10 years. If you worked at one company for 25 years, obviously you can succinct that down to a page, maybe a page and a half. But the 4-page resumes are really starting to become the norm, and I don't think it should be.
So to how and I guess this is where like a resume expert like is helpful, right? Because if you try to look at what that hiring manager or what that recruiter is doing all day, and they're pouring through these resumes, and then you send them a 4-page resume where you're outlining, you've got under one job title, you got 17 bullet points outlining, how, you would carry things down to the mailroom and back, and how you went over and you did this thing and that thing. At what point when you get a resume like that, Deirdre, do you just put it aside? I mean, that like literally. So the thought of kind of pouring through that resume when you see that it's 4 pages long, and you're like 2 o'clock or 2 p.m. in the afternoon, or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and that resume comes across your thing. I mean, are you even paying attention to it?
No, I'm not even looking at those other pages. They're irrelevant. That's what I'm saying. Don't do it. It's too much. And then you start getting into like, I was this kind of person, 20 years ago, this is what I did. Okay, you want to see progression, but it just takes away from what you're trying to accomplish, which is what you've done most recent. That's what employers are caring about.
What I've done most recently, and how what I've done is a benefit to you.
Yes.
There you go, guys. How what I've done, what I'm getting ready to put down here, isn't just some stuff that I've done, but it is directly tied into, and this is why sometimes that one resume that that you put out, you say this is one resume I'm sending to everybody. No. Right? How do I reword this? Right? So yeah, I've done it. So I'm not saying lie, but I'm saying how do I, if I'm looking at this job and I'm understanding exactly what they're looking for, how do I take these 4 bullets under this particular job title, and how do I tailor it, right? Just like a suit, right? You don't want to, you take a suit off a rack and it doesn't fit you properly, right? You want it to tailor fit. And so if I'm a hiring manager, if I am a recruiter looking to create that perfect fit, I want to look at it and know that, when I hire this person, I don't have to hem the pants or take in the waist or do any of those kinds of things. It's just kind of go right in and get it done. And so to that end, if I'm, as you're going through those bullet points, that is the tailoring to say, let me say to Deirdre, for that position, here's what I've done, but here is now how she can look and see that it will directly benefit this particular employee, and how this one will benefit this employee, and how this one will benefit this employee.
So Deirdre, so the best thing to do is that if you have that 500-word thesis, better known as your work experience, then for each particular employee, you should tailor it or edit it so that it highlights more what they're looking for and does not take a great deal of their time.
Absolutely, and I think that lends back to the work that's involved when looking for a job, because you're going to need to take that extra effort and tailor that resume, and not just have it a blanket one. There's blanket ones too that are probably applicable to maybe most of the jobs. But if you do have some really specific things that you want to get accomplished, or you're trying to change directions a little bit, and you want to highlight some of the things that you've done before and how that's applicable to the company, don't just make it that generic one. You're going to need to tailor it a bit.
Yeah, I think that all, I'm telling you, and this is the other thing that I found, I think that all resumes, every job is different. There's some nuance to that job, right? And so if you're not prepared, and this is what I'm saying, if you're not prepared to sit down and pay attention to that job, what those requirements are, and then spend whatever the time is to tailor your resume so that when that recruiter or that hiring manager gets it, they can see that you took time to tailor it. Not to talk about what you did, but to talk about how what you did is of value to them. And if you don't do that, I'm telling you, you're missing out. Because go by the percentages that I'm giving you again. Everybody's not going to see your resume, so it's going to be a blessing when your resume does get looked at. And the question is, when that moment comes, did you do everything with that resume that you could do to have it stand up and out from everybody else's? And if you didn't, then why would you be surprised if you didn't get a call back?
Well, also what it does in tailoring the resume to suit the needs of the potential employer is that it shows that you've taken the time to research the company that you want to be employed by. That your resume now fits with not only their skill set, and their needs for you right now, but also your ability to help them go to the next step in the corporation.
So I'll give you an example. So for instance, Dietrich said forklift drivers, right? So somebody would just send in a thing that says, I worked for company XYZ and I've driven a forklift for 4 years, and that would be it, right? So the question that I would ask that person is this: if I looked at your resume, do you believe that like 20 other resumes are going to come across Dietrich's desk that says that they've driven forklifts for 4 years too? Right? Mm-hmm. So now if 20 resumes come across her desk and they all say that we've driven forklifts for 4 years, what is different about you? Why should Dietrich look at you? So what did you do in driving your forklift?
Well, what I did was I'm sorry, go ahead.
What did you do in driving your forklift that was an added benefit? There was an added benefit. Take that extra second, tailor that bullet point to show the added benefit. So what would the added benefit be, Vincent?
Well, the added benefit in terms of me driving a forklift, but also I've gotten not only certified in forklift, but I'm certified in the 4,000, the 10,000, the 150,000 pound forklift, as well as had some seat time with standard and adjustable boom crane.
Right.
Love it.
You understand what I'm saying, people? So it's not just that I drove a forklift.
Oh, no, Eric, let's get back to her loving it. I need some love. Go ahead, Deidre.
No, I was going to say, someone in the chat talked about accomplishments, and that is really, I'm glad they brought that up, because that's one thing that you could be creative with at the top of your resume when you talk about things that you've done and ways that you've helped a company save money, save time. Those are key things at the very top, because I'm looking at those. I want to see, because at the end of the day, yes, the company wants it to make sure that you're going to be a good fit and how you're going to add value, what you're going to do, and you're at that company. So yes, please put those accomplishments and those great things. And that lends back to what Vincent is saying with your resume at the bottom part of it. It can't just be drove a forklift. No, it has to be. You need to elaborate. You need to give me some more information for me to pull from that, so I can feel a level of comfort in that particular skill that you've done, and what other kind of certifications you might have. Those are all key things to consider.
If I were to equate for a second, guys, searching for a job with a professional athlete, let's say a football player. What makes a player valuable are his or her statistics, right? So if it's a football player, how many catches, how many yards after catch, what they run in a 40, what they run in 100, all of those things, right? And so when you have a recruiter from a team looking, they're trying to figure out if it's a wide receiver, how that wide receiver is going to benefit, right? So for the person to just say, I play football, right? Because I drive a forklift. Right? Or I put on a helmet and shoulder pads. Well, you've got thousands of people who put on helmets and shoulder pads. You got thousands of people who play football. The question is, how do you fit into this particular slot to be a benefit to us as we are trying to win a championship, right? And so now when I go down your statistics, right, your stats, That's what sets you apart from all of the other thousands of wide receivers. And so, what are the things, like Deirdre said, how were you able to save money, save time, right? Add value, come up with creative ideas when you were working at that other job? So when I look at those things, I say, wow, if I bring this person in, not only do they drive a forklift, but they also offer all of these other things. And if you're not prepared, again, but it takes work, right? Because simply putting down that bullet point that says I drive a forklift, that's easy. And then you send out those 100 resumes, that blanket vanilla resume. You send it out to everybody. And then you're wondering why you're not getting a call back. Because somebody took the time to do exactly what I'm talking about doing. And when my resume, if it were me, my resume hit Deirdre's desk along with your resume, Deirdre saw that I took the time, that I showed how I would be of value, and we were, and I'm ready to rock and roll for her, and be a superstar, not just a forklift driver, but a superstar.
But if we're keeping it with the football player analysis and relationship with the job marketing, I think they would both be looking for one key thing that they're looking for in terms of accomplishments is how much of a complete, in terms of football, is how much of a complete player or athlete you are. Not only the stats on this, but the stats also show that you can block, which is great for a wide receiver.
Yeah.
You have experience as a high school quarterback, which is great for a wide receiver in case they do options. And in terms of the job market, it would be how well-rounded you are or how flexible you are as an employee.
Right.
Not only can you drive a forklift, but you don't have a problem in rolling up your sleeves and, picking up a couple of packages and loading them on.
Exactly. That's a great point, Vincent, right? That you can pick up the slack somewhere else. That you're multidimensional. Well, listen, Deirdre, I know you got to run.
Yes.
And
Thanks for taking short this week. Thanks for having me.
No. We had a great time, and I hope, guys, the time that we took, kind of will help you out, right? So you're not just sitting there putting together a blanket resume, because there's somebody out there doing work, looking for a job. Deirdre, enjoy the rest of your. We didn't get to talk about what you did for Memorial Day, but we'll talk about that next Tuesday.
Next time. Okay.
All right. Thanks. Hey,
we'll talk about that on Labor Day.
We're talking about it on Labor Day. Hey, Vincent.
Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. I'm going to play this video, guys. And Vincent, you and I are going to talk about it right after it's over. Thanks again, Deirdre.
Can you please stop? Sir, I'm asking you to stop.
Please don't come close to me.
Sir, I'm asking you to stop recording me.
Please don't come close to me.
Please take your phone off.
Please don't come close to
And
me.
I'm taking a picture calling the cops.
Please call the cops. Please call the cops.
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Please tell them whatever you like.
Excuse me? I'm sorry, I'm in the Ramble, and there is a man, African-American, he has a bicycle helmet. He is recording me and threatening me and my dog. There is an African-American man, I am in Central Park. He is recording me and threatening myself and my dog. And my... I'm sorry, I can't hear you either. I'm being threatened by a man in the Ramble. Please send the cops immediately. I'm in Central Park in the Ramble. I don't know.
Thank you.
Vincent, are you there?
Oh, yeah, I'm here.
So,
Go
ahead.
I get disgusted, and I guess the more I see it, the more I get sensitized to it, because in our society I've become so desensitized to incidents like this, because it really, really, really invokes a level of passion in me that should not be displayed. But Go ahead, Eric.
So there are a couple things here, guys, and this is what I got out of watching that. See, white folks understand, whether they want to explain it to you now or not, their privilege. It is something they inherited. It is something that every fiber of our society bestows upon them on a daily basis. And some pretend that it doesn't exist, and shame on them, but they know it does. And when it is time for them to pull it out, they do. And so what this woman did in the video was, her confrontation wasn't with a person. See, whatever was going on there prior to him pulling out his phone and starting to record it, it wasn't with a person. See, she identified him as being a black person who was inferior to her, and his life was inconsequential to whatever her needs and desires were. And so when she decided, because he wasn't doing whatever it was she believed he should be doing, because she wasn't just a person, she was a white person, a white woman who had demanded him do whatever it was, as a white woman, not as a person. See, I want you to be clear about this. That's a white woman. When he didn't do it, she said, now what I'm going to do, because I understand, because I watch the news and I know how this country views you. So when I talk to you, when I wear this hat and I talk about these racist policies, and I talk about how this country despises Black Americans, Vincent, she understands what I say, right? Because she knows those policies. She knows all of that stuff. And so she took her phone out and she said, and I'm going to prove it to be so. And she picked the phone up and she said, I'm calling because a black man, or an African-American man, not a man, just see, an African-American man, because that is now going to trigger something in the police. And how did she know that? History.
Yeah. You know what she's trying to trigger? His death.
Right. But it's going to trigger something in the police. And she knew it, right? So, and then beyond that, you heard her escalate something that wasn't happening, right? Because the thing's being videoed. She's now far enough away from this guy. This guy's doing nothing but videotape. And she's telling, so she starts to escalate. I'm being threatened. I can't do it. See?
Yeah.
This is the America that we live in.
I'm going to call the police and express to them that I'm a white woman, so that my life is in danger by a black man. That's the movie of The Birth of a Nation, the beginning and the beginning of the popularity of the Ku Klux Klan. That's the same narrative that white America has been saying since the beginning of slavery.
But that's the same Central Park that those Central Park 5, right, were accused of, right?
Right.
See. And then I see somebody, Sid, put up here that the woman apologized. But I want you to understand this. See, and this is what I'm saying. Look, but Biden apologized too, right? See, let's be clear. I want people to be clear. See, so some apologies we accept, and I put something up yesterday. We won't move forward until we hold all racists accountable, right? Not just some, because they suit our needs right now. All of them. So the question that I would ask is this: well, okay, if we're in a season right now of accepting apologies, then why not accept hers? See, we can't pick and choose, and which is where I am. I'm going, you know what? I understand it all. I understand the culture, and I understand the thing that breeds it all. And so we can't, as Black Americans, create a confusing narrative that says, hey, look, we're willing to shoulder it here. We're willing to defend it over here. We're willing to make excuses for it over here. But hey, guess what? Over here, we're not. Either we do or we don't. But we can't choose when to.
There's a huge difference between an apology and platitude. What she offered was not an apology, it was platitude. And the only reason she came up with the platitude is the simple fact that she lost her job. She should be arrested right now for making a false report.
Right.
She should be arrested for attempted murder.
I understand it, but my point to you is this. It's a deeper point that I'm making, guys. So in this era where we are finally, right, talking about race in a bigger, broader, bolder way, and now we see this video come out. We're having a conversation about Arbery, right, being murdered. All of these things are happening. I'm saying again, and I'm sticking to my guns, guys. I cannot listen to a presidential candidate who makes a comment that is so racist, so charged with white privilege, and then excuse it, and then that same media that's telling me to excuse that puts this video out and says, hey, be angry with her. Talks about those two white men who hunted down Arbery and says, hey, be angry with them. But over here, hey, guess what? Accept the apology, because we have a bigger mission in mind. I'm saying there lies the confusion. There's the dilemma. Either it's all offensive, or we just all lie down and just take it. But don't tell me that I have to shelf my blackness over here and my anger. No, to be conscious and to be black in America is to be in a constant state of rage, because you see it all.
You feel it all too.
And you feel it all.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, and right now, guys, look, and I was up all night. People were like, oh, Eric, so, who you're telling us not to vote for, you're not going to vote for this one, and so you're lying down, and so you're going to get, I'm saying, no. I'm speaking truth. Right? I'm not going to make excuses for any of them. I'm not making excuses for her. I'm not making excuses for those men who hunted and murdered Arbery. I'm not making excuses for any of them. Because if I make excuses for one of them, then I got to make excuses for them all. See, my agenda is clear. My interests are clear. I have a zero tolerance for it. But you have this country, you have people who have a bigger agenda that doesn't concern you at all. That says, no, don't have a zero tolerance. We're going to direct you on when to tolerate it. For our interests, not yours, but for ours. And I'm saying, no, I'm never going to tolerate it. Ever. And the crazy part about it for me was during the debate, Cory Booker didn't tolerate it. Elizabeth Warren didn't tolerate it. Kamala Harris didn't tolerate it. None of them tolerated it. They all told us that we shouldn't tolerate it. But now they all have a bigger agenda because they're all on a team. And now they all come unified saying, hey, you know what? Wink, wink. Tolerate it now. Well, why did they tell us not to tolerate it before? On a national stage in front of 25 million people. But now they tell us tolerate it. I want you to understand the craziness of it.
And to me, it's a level of compartmentalizing the both issues in terms of tolerating Biden and his bullcrap, because what Biden said was offensive to a lot of people, yet what Biden said did not put Charlemagne the God in harm's way of getting his butt kicked or killed by the police.
No, but you know what? The sentiment does. The sentiment does. So I posted something on my page, right? And I want you to understand this, guys, because it's really, it stinks to high heaven. So on one hand, we have notable people in our community, right? So on one day we're looking up to a woman like Angela Davis, right? And all that she has done for the movement, right? And we talk about her, we throw up on our shoulders, we tell people that we ride on her shoulders and all of the sacrifices that she made, right? Being a hunted woman by the FBI and other things that she did. Now, but when that woman says, I can't do this thing over here, right? And then Biden says, well, if you don't understand, then you're not black. And then we look at Angela Davis side-eye. See, because she's one of the ones too, right? So we got to now look at Angela Davis side-eyed and go, all right, well, Angela Davis needs to get on board with this. So how do we flip that? How do we flip all of her life's work, all of the sacrifices that she made, but now because somebody else who has a different agenda tells us, you know what? Marginalize that woman now. Because we, not you, we have a bigger interest, right? I go down the list of the people. The list of the people who we over here, we applaud them. You know, we read their books. We watch their lecture series, right? We say, hey, these are the educated folks in our community. Now they look and say, hey, we can't roll with this. And now all of a sudden, all of those people are discredited because of somebody else's agenda? All of them?
Well,
see, because understand this. Biden's comment wasn't just to Charlemagne the God, where he said, if you don't understand, then you're not black. It was to everybody who says, so Eddie Claude, president of African American Studies at Princeton, who says, I'm going to leave that blank. I'm going to vote down ballot, but I'm not going to vote there. Is Biden telling Eddie Glaude he's not black? And now, do you have the hubris to tell Eddie Glaude to get on code and vote anyway? Like, really? Is that where we are now? So there to me lies the black dilemma. That either we are listening to what Eddie Glaude says, either, you know, and I'm not saying that we are monolithic, right? But I'm saying the basic principles of what he says. The basic principles when he talks about how this country, the very nature of this country and what it stands for isn't and has never worked for us, right? So do we buy into that or no? I mean, I'm trying to understand it. Like I don't understand it. So the anger I have, and then I'll let you go, Vince. I'm sorry. The anger that I have about what that white woman did to this black man is no different. No different. I look at all of it the same, through the same lens. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, okay, they do have a level of emotional response because what Biden said when he spoke to, because Charlemagne did present himself as the voice of the black community, and I wanted to know, what were you going to do for the black community? And Joe Biden's flippant response, even though he said, yeah, you know, and you can understand Joe and how he feels and how, you know, people he's been dealing with, has the same effect of, you know, Bill Maher, who's been hanging around all these black people, thinks that now he is emboldened enough and he feels like he has been accepted in the black community where he can use the N-word. It's the same thing with Biden. Yet, so I can understand that to a touch, versus a woman who now puts this man's life in danger and tells him that, you know, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to call them and tell them that I'm a white woman in fear of my life of a black man.
Right.
Which in the city of New York is almost a death sentence. So, because they're killing black men for things like, you know, selling loose cigarettes.
Right.
They're beating the crap out of black men for not having a mask.
But I'm not.
So no, there's a level. Hold on, brother. You said you're gonna let me finish, right?
Go ahead.
So there's a level of passion or stronger passion involved where this woman is now about to attempt to murder this man versus Joe Biden making a flippant, stupid, you know, statement.
No. If he
So,
listen, but if he had just made the one flippant stupid statement, right? But I'm attaching that flippant statement that you want to call it to a history of other things, where on that debate stage, he was told that he was palling around with segregationists, right? Right. So, right, he was deemed the author of the crime bill, right? We can go back. I can give you a litany of other things. I can give you the comments that he made. Wait a minute. I can give you the comments that he made about Obama in 2008, right? I could keep going. So it's not just not an isolated incident. And so now, if we were just to take the 94 crime bill, and we were to look at what that did in terms of how America continued to look at Black Americans, right? And the statements that he personally made about that culture, and that his children would have to grow up in that culture, and how we needed to get a hold of it. Talking about Black people, right? So playing a part in how that woman that we now see in Central Park, she's birthed from that very mindset. Birthed from it. And so we have to attach him to that. She's not separated from it, attached to it in terms of how they see us. And so this is somebody said intellectual bullshit. I think that it's intellectual babble when you all try to justify it. For me, listen, I saw a post yesterday, where they said, right now you have Biden and Trump arguing about who hates Black people the least. That's the conversation. Let's take this call. Caller, go. Caller? Vincent? I don't know. Vincent, I think I might have lost you. I can't figure out this. Hello, caller?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Hey, let me just, the policy in the park was that there was no dogs supposed to be off the leash.
1 second, let me bring Vincent back on. Hold on, Mike, hold on. Let me bring Vincent back on now. I want you to finish. Vincent?
Oh, hi.
Jeez. I'm gonna try this one more time. Mike?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, the policy.
All right. Yeah. I updated my software to Sideline, and it doesn't work. So what I'm gonna ask you to do, Vincent, is call in on don't call in on my personal phone number. Mike, please call back. Vincent. Yeah, I can't figure out the software, and I want Mike to weigh in on this point. Hey, Mike, I'm gonna try to inbox you another number to call, but go ahead, Vincent, and then Mike's gonna call on a different number and is gonna weigh in.
See, Eric, the point that I'm trying to make is that they are in the same category of racism, but there is a little distinction between a woman who is about to now invoke white terrorism and a man who has spent his life with industrial or institutionalized racism. One causing the other an immediate dilemma or disparity or life-threatening situation, where the other is just used to and conformed to his privilege and the legislation of the time period allowing his privilege to be prevalent.
So what you're suggesting is that one is less dangerous than the other one.
No, that's not my suggestion at all. What I'm saying, because they both have a huge level of danger to the community. One is a little bit more imminent, and the other one can be easily justified with the next election.
Hey, let's take this call. All right, I think I may have gotten it. Go ahead, caller.
Yeah, the policy in the park was that no dogs should be off the leash, and the black man just wanted her to put the dog on the leash. And how dare him to question her about her dog being off the leash? So she gonna call the police on him and have him arrested, maybe even killed. It applies to the conversation with Charlemagne the God and Biden's a stretch, but it was about policy and how he wanted policy to directly
I don't
affect
think it's a stretch,
him.
Mike. I don't think it's a stretch. I really think that if you look and say it's how they see us. Remember when we were doing that thing when the whole Central Park thing is how they see us. So let's look at how they see us. If you don't conform, the level of contempt that they have for you, if you don't conform, is immeasurable. And so when Charlemagne the God did not conform, right? So when Biden threw this out and said, here, and he goes, no. He pushed back, just like that black guy pushed back. Then what did he say? Well, then you're not black. Why? Because to be black means that you're submissive, that you understand, that you just get it. And with this guy, see, he wasn't black, because if he was black, he wouldn't have challenged her. See, come on, stop it. We got another call. Call it go.
Yes. Hey, here's the thing you're missing, Vincent. The reason the woman in the park was able to do what she was able to do, or thought that she was able to do what she did, was because of the history of what Joe Biden has done. I'm not missing that. I stated that. Let me finish it. Finish it. Now, by having a person that has the history and the power to invoke the rules, okay, in society, okay, that allow for the white privilege to persist is the problem. So if I'm going to remove or put an X on one, then I definitely have to put the X on the one that allows for the other to happen. Okay, and his history allows for white women in the park to tell a black man before she even does it, I'm about to call and report your black ass and make some shit up. She was able to do that because of the white privilege given to her for 47 years by a man like Joe Biden. Now, if I could, and I agree that both of them have a level of institutional racism, or the simple fact that it is so ingrained into the American DNA that it just rolls so easily off the tongue of this woman, and express to him that, you know what, I'm about to put your life in danger. What I'm saying to you is that there is a level of degree in which I am reacting to Joe Biden versus this woman, because Joe Biden at that time in his conversation did not put Charlemagne's life in danger. He may have hurt his pride and his ego, but at no time did he put Charlemagne in imminent danger.
But do you believe?
I don't think he hurt Charlemagne the God's pride or ego. Charlemagne the God has the power to bring a presidential candidate on his platform and talk about the issues. Now, what happened was Biden's pride, Biden's ego.
Right. There we go.
Biden, come on now. Let me put it in mathematical what racism is. If all three things exist, you have racism. If power plus privilege plus prejudice. That woman showed she had the power, she had the prejudice, and she had the privilege. Biden showed he had the power, he had the prejudice, and he had the privilege. There's no compartmentalizing that. None. You can't. This is where we are today.
And listen, and I'm not debating or disagreeing with your statement. I'm not. Again,
I understand your position.
Again, my position is the simple fact of this: they are both signs of and privilege of the institutional racism that we've been experiencing that one act put another person in harm's way.
Let me ask you a question, Vincent. I got one question for you. Do you believe that cumulatively, that Biden's actions over the last 47 years put that man's life at risk in Central Park?
I don't believe that. You know why? Because Biden was not in direct contact with that man in Central Park.
No, I'm talking about the policies that over the 47 years that Biden oversaw. Do you believe that those policies played any role at all in helping that woman secure her white privilege?
None.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
None.
Then we're done with the conversation.
Let me explain my position.
I want to hear this. Go
I want
ahead.
to hear it.
Okay. Now, Biden's policy procedures that he has been privy to and institutionalized, and in some cases championing, did do two things. One, it helped with a great deal of black oppression or oppression of people of color.
You're dancing around the bush. Answer the question.
Yeah, can I please finish?
Go ahead.
Can I please finish?
Sure.
Yes, it did substantiate and give another notch of white privilege. Yes, it did once again show the institutional racism and its ugly head. Yes, it did. But and in some ways, and why I say it doesn't is because what he said, what Biden has done has not directly or indirectly given or empowered this white woman the ability to lie, manipulate the law and the circumstance to put a man in harm's way.
All right, guys.
Now, did Biden put some things in place?
Why are you yelling, Vincent? Yelling isn't going to make your point any more valid, right? So what I'm saying to you is this. Listen, here's what I'm saying to you, right? Without yelling, because I don't think that yelling is going to get it done, right?
Because the audio on your end is
Right.
much louder than everybody else's audio.
Yeah, and I keep getting comments, Vincent, about your yelling, so I'm going to ask you not to. But here's what I'm saying to you, Vincent, how they see it, right? So mass incarceration, you look at the number of black people in prison, you look at the number of black people criminalized, right?
Prison pipeline.
Right? The prison pipeline, all of those things set up a culture of how we're viewed. And for you, I just think it's disingenuous for you to say that this white woman who's impacted by all of what we all see, that in no way, shape, or form was her white privilege enhanced in her mind by the current culture of mass incarceration.
That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
That is not.
That's exactly what you said.
Vincent, no. Come, let me address what.
No, Vincent. I want to hear Farrakhan because you went through the whole litany. You went through the whole litany of what you believed. We heard it, and I'm saying to you that I disagree with it.
That is not the sentiment of my statement. But go ahead, Farrakhan.
First question: do you believe that racism, period, is a threat to black people?
Yes.
Okay, so then anyone enacting racist policies, no matter how direct or indirect, is threatening black people.
No doubt.
Okay, so then Joe Biden and his actions for 47 years has been threatening black people.
Yes, it has, and I admit to that.
You. And then I'm going to say it one other way. Do you believe that terrorism in Israel threatens Israelis and Jews in America?
Do I believe that terrorism in Israel threatens? Well, it
all
does.
over the world. If terrorism in Israel threatens Jews all over the world, then racism anywhere threatens blacks all over the world.
Go ahead, Farrakhan.
So a racist policy enacted by Joe Biden, how large or small, affects black folks everywhere. It empowers those that can use it to threaten their lives while on video and say, I don't care about your video or not. I'm calling up to get your life threatened by the police.
So here's where I am on this. So if
let
you
me just say
decide,
this
If I could, but listen, can I please? No, go ahead, brother. And then I can address all three of them.
All right. So, was Joe Biden on the wrong side of the argument on the busing desegregation? Was he on the wrong? Yeah, right. He didn't want black kids and white kids to be going to school together. So, and the white kids had the privileges of better education, better this and better that. So now here we are, 47 years later, and this white woman is, because the man want the policies to be adhered for him. And this white woman saying, no, I have the privilege, I have the power, I have everything. Joe Biden and this woman are one and the same. And so if you're gonna like, one don't have anything to do with each other.
That's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
See, once again, you guys are now.
I misspoke on that.
You guys are now.
I apologize.
Are now. No, it's not just you. It's a lot of people when you making a statement. So basically what you're saying, I mean, in saying that is the same thing that Biden said to Charlemagne. So what you guys are saying to me is that if I do not agree with this in its totality, then I'm not black.
No, that's not what we're saying.
Okay. So
we just want you to get an understanding.
No. I have an understanding, and I agree with everything that everybody said, with the exception of this. And the only thing that I say
don't scream. Don't start screaming. Don't start screaming.
No. Again,
he's passionate.
No, I understand, but people can't hear him.
Okay, now let me say this as impassionate as I possibly can, because the only thing that actually makes me upset a little more of what she did versus what he said is the simple fact that she made a move that immediately put him in harm's way.
Oh, okay.
And that's the only big difference
Got
I see.
it. So if it's imminent, then it affects
Correct.
you. If I can see a certain degree of separation between the threat and what I might have done. So if what I did 2 years ago may have led to this, but it wasn't imminent, then I give him a pass. So
no, I'm not giving him a pass.
I'm just trying to
in no
understand.
way did I say that I was giving Biden a pass on it.
Okay, listen, I'm going to ask you again not to yell.
This is a classism issue right here.
Right.
Is that you're saying that because the man's life was in danger, and what I'm hearing from upper class black people about Charlemagne the God don't put his career and his livelihood in jeopardy. Because I'm hearing some stuff about Charlemagne the God that don't apply. You know what I mean? He's in the hip hop community, but because he's in the hip hop community, he's not to be frowned on. So I'm hearing people from a certain class saying that, how dare him, his hippity hoppity self.
Now remember, Mike, yesterday, what did I say yesterday? I said, listen, when black folks are doing constructive things,
they're standing up,
when they're doing constructive things, they get demonized, right? They get
marginalized,
right? And they ultimately seek to destroy him. What I'm looking at now, because Charlemagne stepped in it. Make no mistake about it, right?
He's always been in it.
No.
From what I know of Charlemagne the God, he's always been this same person. So go ahead, I'm listening.
No, but I'm saying with regard to this, because understand the circumstances. See, I believe that they thought they were going to put him on with Charlemagne, and Charlemagne was going to soft shoe, right, and give Biden a pass, and just like Al Charlatan, just like all the rest of the Negro whisperers, right, that he was going to do that. And
he was going to take one for the team.
When he pushed back, that's when you saw, like you said, that privilege in Biden. Like, how dare you? How dare you? How dare you? The same way. Wait a minute. Remember, Biden did the same thing with Cory Booker. Remember, he said, "You know better." He said, "Cory knows better." Right? See, we're getting these glimpses of Joe Biden, right? And then he called him boy, right? Remember that? See, we can't forget it. And then Cory said, and that was a big thing, right? And then it was like, well, wait a minute, how'd that slip out? And now we got something else, and we say, oh, this is just another thing that slipped out. at some point we got to add them all up and we got to say, wait a minute, maybe the guy's showing us
what it is.
Yeah, maybe this is who he is.
Yeah. Yes, and I agree with that. And in fact, hold on, let me, if I could, Eric, and confirm this. When we talked about this when it came up, did I not applaud Charlemagne for asking?
Call him an ass. You call him an ass yesterday.
No. I said that yes, he can be an ass.
Oh, okay.
But I do appreciate the simple fact that he asked for what, everybody has been sitting up here and considering to be, Charlemagne did call him out and say, okay, show me the receipt.
And so listen, here's the thing. Here's the thing that I want to get at. And, I see another comment. Somebody said something about me calling Al Sharpton Al Charlatan, right? But no. But let us,
what you call Brother Clyburn.
Wait a minute. But let us be clear. But let us be clear. Listen, wait a minute. But let us be clear about this, right? These are the same folks who were putting up memes when Steve Harvey went to go meet with Donald Trump. These are the same people who put up memes about other black people. See, so what I'm saying to you is this. It's convenient for you when it works for you. And it really ain't ever working for you. You're working for somebody else and you don't even know it. That's the crazy part about it, right? So you are running a narrative that somebody else has brainwashed you to convince you to run because it benefits them, because it doesn't benefit you. So you talking about, me talking about a guy like Sharpton is because I look and I see how detrimental he's been to the community. Right? So the things that benefit us, that should be benefiting us, I see how they're working against us because of Al Charlatan, went and sided, in so many different ways against us for his own benefit. Right? And we've laid them out on this show. So when I call him Al Charlatan, it is not just a name that I'm calling him. It is to point that out. See these other things. Yeah. You understand what I'm saying? And so can
I just say one thing? Then I got to get off the phone. There's another organization. The NAACP should be mad. Well, they shouldn't be mad, but they should have been the first one jumping up and down, being a nonpartisan. Joe Biden in that interview said the NAACP endorsed him. Charlemagne, it must have went over Charlemagne's head, but a lot of these organizations, not just Al Sharpton and his organization, but a lot of these organizations should be jumping up and down because he is more than one or two missteps that Joe Biden made in that interview with Charlemagne the God. If people go back and listen to it, being that they are nonpartisan organization, they should have been like, no, we don't endorse nobody. We might have a forum or this, or you might come to our committee or this or that, but we don't endorse nobody. So,
and if I could say something about the NAACP, they also gave Donald Trump an award.
They gave Donald Sterling an award.
Exactly. Exactly.
What?
So when they do that, they are actually reducing a heck of a level of credibility for young black millennials.
Yeah, and we have to be careful when we give racism cover. And a lot of these organizations give racist cover especially when they in trouble. They'll give them the Man of the Year or the this or the that award, and give that person's racism cover. So that's not, just.
No, they don't give them cover. What they do is they give their little racist behinds a pass and a black card.
Well, a lot of people give Joe Biden cover right now. So, and all of his policies, it's not. We have to be, No.
And all of his policies, and I'm going to tell you the honest God truth, because everybody keeps asking you how I feel about Joe Biden. Yes, you know what? I do think that situation with the race thing was, very, very, very convenient to wait till it comes up. But no, the racism part and piece. Come on, baby. Let's call it for what it is. It's racist.
So,
but and I'm not going to go back to my point, was the simple fact that he did not call the cops on Charlemagne and said that this black guy is attacking me.
No, but you know what he did? Know what he did with the crime bill? Wait a minute. But you know, wait a minute.
The level of disagreement with Charlemagne the God came up in the class in some kind of way from people. So that puts him in harm too. So it's not just that woman.
No. The level of disagreement with Charlemagne, what it did was it got him to reveal his true self.
Yeah. No, but I'm talking about the people who are now talking down on Charlemagne. Black people talking down on Charlemagne the God, just like Biden talked down to Charlemagne the God, giving Biden cover. So
giving him a pass.
No, he getting cover.
Vince, did you hear what you just said? You just said that because Charlemagne went against what Joe Biden said, it showed his true color. Yes, so Joe Biden in his true colors is a racist.
Joe Biden in his true colors has a level of white
listen,
there's no doubt about it. Because wait a minute.
No, I'm not gonna wait a minute. I'm gonna switch.
So you're gonna argue with me because I actually said the truth?
Listen, I wanna switch real quick, right? We'll get back to this another day.
I gotta get up out of here.
All right,
y'all have a good one.
Real quick, guys. And I posted this on my page just very, very quickly. It says in order to speed up a vaccine, they'll need volunteers to agree to be injected with COVID-19. Would you volunteer to help save lives?
To be somebody's stunt dummy? No.
So
I'll tell you what.
Listen, don't yell. Okay.
No, I'm not about to be someone's stunt dummy. But since Trump is so eagerly and animately pushing for this particular group and company to make this vaccine, let him take the first bullet.
So what they are saying is that in order for a vaccine to be, so do you agree that before the country could truly fully open and get back to some semblance of normalcy, that we're going to have a vaccine?
Well, I think that a vaccine is very important. But
no, that wasn't my question. I asked a very specific question. Do you believe that in order for the country to fully open and get back to some semblance of normalcy, we have to have a vaccine?
No.
Okay.
No, and you want to know, but no, we do have to have a vaccine, but we don't have to have it for the country to be fully open and have some resemblance of normalcy. We can accomplish that with testing and keeping, and we can accomplish that with testing.
Okay,
until the vaccine comes.
Go ahead.
Because rushing the vaccine.
I'm not saying rushing. I'm not talking about rushing. I didn't put rushing in there. I asked you. I'm not saying rushing. I'm gonna ask my question again. Do you believe that we need a vaccine? I didn't say rushing. See, don't try to vaccine. This is where I say that you have a pre-formulated narrative. I didn't say rushing. Right? I'm asking you because I'm listening to what Dr. Fauci and what Dr. Birx is saying. And some other notable people, and they're saying that we need a vaccine to fully open, right? So are you saying, I'm asking you, do you believe for us to fully open and have some semblance of normalcy, whenever that is, do you believe that a vaccine will have to be present?
No.
Okay. So what I'm getting from some folk from the medical industry and as well as from economists, they're saying that the lack of what is the word I'm looking for, Vincent? Security from Americans in terms of saying, I'm not going to go to a restaurant right now. I'm not going to go to a movie theater right now. I'm not going to go to all of these different things that need to open up. I'm not going. Right, I'm just not going, and they'll develop a greater level of security once a vaccine. So I believe that, and I believe those doctors that are saying that we're going to need to have a vaccine in order to really have testing, yes, contact tracing, yes, social distancing, yes, and they're also saying a vaccine too, right? So somebody's going to have to. So somebody's going to have to volunteer at some point, If we're going to have a vaccine, there's going to have to be some volunteers. So I'm just asking the question. So when you have, like we had Dr. Wright on the show, and Dr. Wright said, we're not communal thinkers, right? We're individual thinkers. And when I posted this and I saw all the people go, no, 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 no. Well, they're going to be the beneficiaries when a vaccine does come. They're going to be the beneficiary of somebody stepping forward and saying, I'll volunteer. So my question is, why wouldn't you? And I'm not talking you, Vincent. I'm saying the proverbial you. Why wouldn't you, the proverbial you, be one of the people to step forward as opposed to waiting for somebody else to volunteer to save your life?
Okay. Well, in terms of...
It wasn't a question directly to you. It was just,
no. I know the question wasn't directly to me,
right.
But I will keep it and address it as if, or as they say in certain rooms, I'm gonna keep this all about me. No, I did my volunteer time when I joined the United States military. I did my volunteer times of service for our community. I did my volunteer time of putting my life on the line for my country. Now, I think it's time that someone else should do it. I think it's time for someone else to do it because of a few things. One, they are rushing this vaccine. And every time in our history that we have rushed a vaccine, it turned out to be a not good or positive experience. So, no.
Hey, Vince, you just mentioned the military. And it made me realize, like, with the military, those guys really don't have a choice, right? They make them take all kinds of...
Yeah. Yeah.
So I see, as opposed to saying I'm not saying they should do it, but as opposed to asking the general public, we already know they're going to probably give that vaccine to all the people in the military. So, by force.
Right? Both military and prison. Because both military and...
both prisoners, right? They could in fact do it to prison population.
Correct.
It's not like you don't need it to the Joe Q individual or John Q individual when you know there are populations for whatever reason, whether it's military, forced incarceration, which you are a slave, so you have no choice, right? That you can do that.
Or do what they usually do. Introduce it into a third world country and tell them that they got the cure for them.
All right. Well, listen, I just put that out there because I wanted to see what people thought about it. Vincent, we didn't get to talk about, yesterday and what you might have cooked on the grill. But like we said, we'll discuss it on Labor Day.
We'll discuss that on Labor Day.
On Labor Day. And thank you guys for tuning in. Be well. And like Vincent says, God bless you. And, if inshallah,
if
we'll
it
see
be
you.
God's will that we meet again tomorrow, it shall be done.
Inshallah.
No doubt, may we all, prosper and stay healthy and safe. But Vince, I just want to say before it's over with, there were no good masses.
Oh.